We had more growth than anyone's ever seen in the history of the internet. Who's around you that's doing really well will they teach you? They can have as much engagement as they want, but they want to throttle it back because they want advertisers to be able to pay for the reach. The most fulfillment you're going to get is the search within. Shadow banning is a real thing, and Instagram won't admit it. It's not a race to good ideas, it's a race to revenue. I've seen the weirdest shit make money. We're an 18-month-old company growing like wildfire. He felt that we needed to be leaned out, like a classic private equity kind of move. Increase the revenue, reduce the expenses, right? 18-month-old company, it doesn't make sense.
The reason why people listen to you is because you've done epic shit. You've been involved in epic stuff, you've exited epic stuff, you've got a story to tell, and it's facts.
We were on a $100 million buying spree, acquiring media companies. We were doing it without any cash. I learned a very specific art. There are very few people on this planet that can take a company public and have done it. At the end of the day, nobody cares who pioneered it, who created it. It's just like, you can't patent anything. You're showing somebody a recipe of how to do it a little differently.
And welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast. And today, guys, I have another absolute banger for you. I have Ted Dhanik, the man who was one of the first to found and start with MySpace. He's scaled that, they exited that, and he's gone on to do other things in tech as well. Absolutely smashed it on all levels. Mate, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's an absolute pleasure. I think you're someone who was around in the early days of social media. You guys saw what I think it was Friendster or FriendFinder. Friendster were doing with the platform, and you were one of the first on board with MySpace, and that's how your kind of journey in tech kind of took its front. I mean, how did you first get involved in tech, and what was it about like that model that you guys saw and made you start MySpace?
Sure. So essentially, I've been in tech before MySpace as well. So I was in the tech in the mid-'90s in the Silicon Valley and during the dot-com boom. So my career started there in sales and business development and had a marketing degree. So some of that was relevant. And then I ended up at a bunch of startups, and then I ended up in one in LA. I'm from Silicon Valley, so I lived up north in San Francisco. And then ended up moving to LA for a startup company called LowerMyBills.com. And then we ended up selling that to Experian. I was one of the early guys there. So that was a successful venture, and it was a lot of fun. And we learned a lot of stuff there, and then jumped on MySpace and from its beginning.
What was the thing about MySpace that you kind of thought, you know what, I have to be involved in this because I think it could be a unicorn. I think it could be something really successful.
At the time, I just didn't want to work in sales anymore, right, in business development. So after coming off of Lower My Bills, I just felt like I needed a sabbatical, really kind of some time off from what I was normally doing. So, and MySpace was starting at the time, and, and my role there was very different. It was going to be marketing at that moment, so I was good friends with Tom, and Tom said, hey, just come on, let's do marketing. Initially, it was just, hey, let's throw a bunch of really cool events and, acquire some exclusive content from record labels and film studios, et cetera. And let's leverage that content to get exclusive, some eyeballs basically on the site. And so, that was very different from what I was used to doing. So it started off that way, and it was fantastic, it was great. So
how did MySpace kind of differentiate itself from Friendster in the early days so that it could stand out?
So it was super easy. So we were avid Friendster users, all of us, Tom and a bunch of us, right? And so Tom was also on dating sites, at the time. So what we really wanted to do was kind of make it feel like a less taboo dating site in a way initially, and really just kind of open it up and figure out what the stuff was that was missing. So we had these conversations with some of the biggest people on Friendster, like Tila Tequila at the time. She was huge on Friendster, and just figured out all the things that were restricting and limiting them from growing. And some of the things were super easy and basic, like they were limiting users from having more than 500 friends, on Friendster. You couldn't have more than a couple pictures also. So all those things were like basic, say, hey, we just open it up. You could have as many friends as you want. And at the same time, you could have as many images as you want as well. And then we started adding features like, hey, do you want to categorize your friends? Like you want your top 8 friends to be, displayed on the page, things like that. You want background music, things like that. So we just kept adding features and stuff, and based on conversations we were having with people that were already, on the site on Friendster.
How did you get that first initial boost of growth when you guys started in? Obviously, get it out into the wild, so to speak, so that you started to onboard thousands of users.
So, you know how people are using influencers these days to promote things? Well, we did the same thing. So, we used Tila Tequila and everyone else to promote MySpace. When we first got them on MySpace, they started using the other platform to promote it. So, like they're pushing basically MySpace on Friendster, and all of a sudden people started joining MySpace really fast.
Is it, when you got a platform like a MySpace and you see that now you're bigger, now you're growing, and then you see other people potentially pushing platforms, how can a platform like a MySpace limit that reach for other platforms? So you're not actually so you can get marketing from other platforms, but you're not so much marketing and taking people away from your platform.
Yeah, so I think that generally, I think Twitter's trying to do that right now, limiting the external, links and stuff like that. MySpace didn't care, so much at the time. And I think Twitter, I don't know what Friendster ended up doing, but, I think that sometimes, some of the stuff you have to let people use, you have to let them promote whatever they want to promote, and I think that limiting them from doing that makes them feel confined and constricted, and I think they end up leaving the platform eventually because of that. But I think we've seen that happen on Instagram as well, where initially you couldn't have links, you had to swipe up for stories, and only certain people had the ability to do that. Basically shipping traffic off platform, and I think that Facebook realized that they needed people to do that. It was something that they had to do. So they let them. They slowly kind of opened it up, but they were very protective of the traffic. They didn't want it to go anywhere else.
So I suppose as a platform, then, as someone like yourself who's developing a platform, you have to be willing to let go of some traffic to keep the user base long enough to grow to the level where it can be a unicorn and this, that, and the other, to a billion users, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that you got to make it generally usable, right? So you got to be able to allow it, so it's attractive to people because of what, right? And a lot of things where people are promoting things, and so if these users have a lot of, like, a huge audience, they want to be able to promote their stuff. They want to promote they have a clothing line, or they have whatever it is they promote. Those URLs don't live on that platform; they live external. So they want to be able to push that, and I think from that standpoint, that adds a lot of value for the user. And because of that, the users will continue to post content on the platform. At the end of the day, that platforms just want more content, as much content as they can get. All that content drives the advertising and advertising revenue.
So was the total monetization policy of you guys when you initially started MySpace to just get to X amount of users before then we can turn on monetization through ads? Was that the whole premise of the business plan in terms of monetizing it?
So some background. MySpace's parent company was a company called eUniverse, which was eventually the name changed from eUniverse to I can't remember the name, but anyways. So that company was an ad company, right? So it did all kinds of ad stuff, right? So the parent company wasn't necessarily a good company. It's called Intermix Media. Sorry, that was the name of its parent company, and it was an ad company, and they'd gotten in trouble quite a bit from the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, for advertising, aggressive advertising practice, right? So they were injecting ads and kind of everything, and there was like all kinds of, it was basically an advertising company, online. And so from that standpoint, MySpace had monetization built in pretty quickly, and it was reasonable. So because it was an ad company, we really understood the compromise between user experience and monetization, right? Because there's a fine line between the two, right? Either, you have no monetization, you have the best user experience, or you have some monetization and then user experience is kind of compromised just a little bit. In this case, we're pretty well balanced because we're looking at attrition and we were tracking all of that stuff. And we're saying that, hey, adding an ad unit on this side is causing attrition, or adding an ad unit on this side is affecting our user experience, and so people are talking about it or whatever it is. So we ended up balancing it pretty well. And so then when we ended up selling MySpace to News Corp, that changed, right? So two things happened, and this is all like kind of unfortunate, but it was Rupert Murdoch had talked about this publicly in books and other places, where initially we were supposed to see a big injection of growth capital, right? The growth capital was to hire engineers, and it's a couple hundred a month that we needed, new engineers, because we had so much growth. We had a bigger, from a traffic standpoint, we're bigger than Google at a certain point. We had more growth than anyone's ever seen in the history of the internet or anything else. We were acquiring that many new users every day. And this is all viral. We weren't spending money on any user acquisition campaigns or any of that stuff. So the growth was pretty insane. The site, as a result of that, attracted a lot of bad actors and bad characters. Some of these guys were running their spam houses on MySpace, and using the messaging program and platform to spam and send all kinds of like really really aggressive marketing emails and campaigns through messaging to monetize for themselves. And so that spam was costing us users as well, so user attrition. So we needed more engineers to battle that, and you need to hire engineers, you need to spend some money. First, two things happened as soon as Rupert Murdoch came on. He truly believed that the site was under monetized and the expenses needed to be cut. We're an 18-month-old company growing like wildfire, and he felt that we needed to be leaned out, like a classic private equity kind of move, like increase the revenue, reduce the expenses, right? Not for an 18-month-old company. It doesn't make sense. So that ended up happening. So we had a hiring freeze immediately. Couldn't hire anymore, and couldn't sustain, the growth. And the spam guys went to town, went crazy. And at the same time, to compound the effect, so user experience was compromised because of the spam. The second issue was he wanted to make more money, so he forced us to add more ad units everywhere. So adding more ad units compromises user experience, and then spam does too. So at the same time, the site started falling apart. So while that was happening, Friendster saw this opportunity, say, hey, let's open up. These guys are falling apart. Let's open up to the whole world, because remember, Friendster was limited. Sorry, not Friendster. I'm talking about Facebook. Facebook was limited to just
so
college.
Facebook had just come on the scene as well then.
Facebook had been around since like 2004, right? But they had been in the colleges, and you had to be a student to be able to join.
So
Facebook.
they were on your radar as well.
No, we knew them. We knew who they were. They weren't on our radar at all. We didn't think that they were gonna, do anything, special. But after the acquisition, we were paralyzed, and so they decided, okay, they're really popular within one group, which was the audience of, you're a college student, you're on Facebook. So they decided to open it up to everyone, and so when they did that, they held off on monetization. So no monetization. They just wanted to grow. These guys figured, they understood it really well. We were paralyzed, couldn't handle the growth, and user experience was being compromised. All these guys, they had no ads, and they just opened it up to everyone, and everyone started joining. It was crazy. So people were just tired of MySpace at that moment because of its user experience.
I want to understand how that feels for you guys at the top. Obviously, the first 4 or 5 of you've all got equity in the business. You've all now received a little bit of cash, but you're on an earn-out period of this as well. So you still want to grow this thing, but you feel handicapped to do it. How does that feel from someone who's as driven as you? How does that feel for you right now?
It's very painful because essentially, when you feel like you've built something that's like, monumental, and, you're a part of something really great, and like a really, really great team, and you see someone comes in and destroys it, it's very painful, and it was quite depressing. So we all kind of went through some stuff, in 2008 after that. And, it's really sad what happened to it, but a lot of other things, came out of that. Some of the other team built other companies that are fantastic, that have done well, continue to be serial entrepreneurs and keep building companies. I built a company that serviced MySpace immediately after. MySpace was our first client, and we grew the company, and we took it public in 2017 and continued to grow. And then I just left last year. But we learned a lot, so much from it. There's like there's a lot of valuable experience that, that we got from it. And we know, we know what not to do next time. So
Am I right in thinking that there's kind of a window of time with tech entrepreneurs where you can, is it between 20 and 40, for argument's sake? There's a window of time for tech entrepreneurs where you can absolutely send it, and you've probably only got the opportunity of doing two big runs to market, so to speak, in your careers. Is that kind of, am I right in thinking that, or is there more opportunities than that now?
I think there's, as you start learning, it depends on your experience, right? So I was 27 when we started this. I'm 47 now, so around that time. So it was about 20 years ago, and there's constantly I see new opportunities, and kind of like how we fast followed Friendster at that time. I learned a lot from all of that, and so my thesis has always been fast following and figuring out who's doing what, and how can I do it a little bit better and faster, and so I like leveraging learnings, seeing what people are doing. I don't like paving roads myself. It's too expensive, so I don't want to pioneer something. And I think that, based on the experience, we could build something much bigger, now potentially. So it is just a matter of, putting the right team together and finding a mission, essentially.
As you look at the tech landscape now, in terms of like, you got Twitter and you got Instagram, and it just seems at the moment that Instagram seems to be stealing, for want of a better word, the best features of a Snapchat, of a TikTok, and just trying to integrate them in the platform. When you look at that from an objective standpoint of view, like from the outside, from your experience, do you see that as a kind of a problem that they have no original ideas? It seems to be from this point.
I think that there is some challenging, like sentiment about them not coming up with something unique. But I think that initially Instagram was unique, like it was that the whole concept of it, the whole fundamental, the foundation of Instagram is pretty unique, Now these other things that they're trying to add in there, because they're seeing behavioral patterns, right, of users out there. Oh, these guys like, these short clips and, whatever is the fad at the moment. Can we add that in as a feature? And I feel like that's a really smart thing from a fast following standpoint. Say like, look, the reason why these platforms are growing is because users like seeing content in a certain way, arranged a certain way. Users like, or content generators, influencers like creating content in this type of format. We currently don't support that format, but if we did, maybe we can get them to, produce content for our platform, because it's a behavior, right? It's a very specific type of behavior. And so from that standpoint, I feel that they're pretty smart doing that. These are all, and the way that they're adding this, I feel like these are all features, really. They shouldn't just be platforms of their own. Now, they're specialized. Like TikTok is very specialized in one area, right? One specific area, and it's done really well. And Instagram has not been able to, to break that wall, and I think it's going to take some time for them to gain that kind of momentum that TikTok has. I mean, they're so big, they have the market share, and they've gotten the critical, they've hit that moment where it's very difficult for Instagram to, kind of replicate the kind of figures that these guys have achieved.
Initially, when I saw like Threads come out, I thought, oh, good move from Zuck. But as soon as kind of Elon rebranded Twitter to X, and I could see what he was doing with that, and Threads just went through, I think they're at the lowest active user base that they've ever been at. Do you see kind of taking off app into another app as a kind of a problem from your standpoint? Like, is that something you perhaps wouldn't run that playbook?
So the thing is, the Threads thing, it's a very strange kind of situation because it's so tied into Instagram, right? And so it feels like it's part of Instagram, and then at the same time you're on another app, so it's kind of confusing. I think the challenges that people are seeing on Threads is that you don't have the kind of engagement that you see on X, right? It's very different. So you might have, he might have gotten, a huge amount of users or installs really quickly. It's because they kind of, they leverage the platform to get the audience fast. But I feel like maybe that audience was not necessarily the audience that's active on X anyways, right? So are the users on X the same users on Instagram? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think there is some overlap for sure, but I feel like there's a lot of difference between that type of user. So you basically trying to push, like a Twitter like product to like Instagram user, and I don't know.
The problem from the outside that I saw was like, why would I post on this regularly? Because I'm seeing people with 400k followers on there getting 7 likes and 3 comments.
Yeah.
So it's like that's kind of demoralizing if you're that creator that's got really high engagement over on this Instagram platform. All their real users have gone and followed them on these things, but their content that they're writing, it's good content, but it's not getting, it doesn't have any like reach at all. So when you're in a company like MySpace or Instagram or wherever you are, how do you figure out your algorithm to be able to serve people with enough reach to keep them on the platform, but not too much, so to speak?
The thing about MySpace was so simple. We really just were chronological, and it was just basic. There was really no algorithm from that standpoint. We were not using machine learning at the time. There was no AI. There was none of that stuff. It's just chronological, super easy, and the engagement was pretty strong. It was pretty strong. Now with these guys, like Instagram's algorithm is so complex, right? So insane, and a lot of complaint about the algorithm was related to, hey, people aren't seeing, is reach related, right? So their algorithm is also building in a throttling mechanism for engagement. So it's like they can have as much engagement as they want, but they want to throttle it back because they want advertisers to be able to pay for the reach, right? So in contrast to the organic reach, right? So they have the engagement. Now Threads, I see the same thing. I had like 50,000 or 55,000 Threads followers overnight, like within like a couple days, and that's kind of slowed down. I haven't seen that change. I have like 2.7 million on Instagram, but for some reason it didn't translate, like it partially did, not as much, as I expected it to. But I think that they have to figure something out with regards to the engagement, because that's the problem that everyone's having. So all content creators I'm seeing, they just don't have the engagement, on Threads. It's just it seems like no one's there. It's like dead, it's like an empty mall.
It just feels like that. I don't know whether shadow banning, and maybe you could give some insight into this,
Sure.
whether shadow banning is actually, well, firstly, is shadow banning an actual thing? Because it feels like on Threads from day one you're shadow banned.
Yeah. Shadow banning is a real thing, and Instagram won't admit it. And I have so many friends of mine who've been shadow banned, and I can tell you. So I have friends of mine that have 3-4 million users in their audience, 200 likes on a post or something, like really, really weird, right? Consistently, always, it's been like that ever since something happened, to them. So Instagram won't admit about the shadow ban, but it does exist.
So if you're in that position then, and you've got an Instagram account, you're verified, the traditional way of getting verified, where you had to be notable,
Sure.
not just buying it.
Yeah, like ours.
And you've tanked because you've done something in their eyes wrong at some point, which is kind of what I've seen with Instagram through a couple of different people. What do you do then? Do you have to start your socials again, essentially, on that platform, or is there any way that you can, re-engineer it so that you can get out of that situation?
I think it's hard to say, but I feel like a lot of these people that have this problem are boosting their posts, and they're doing a lot of other the groups, the engagement group stuff, just to do it, and they keep buying engagement, So it's kind of like it's compounding thing, like I have people around me that they have a bunch of followers, and we don't know where those followers came from. Not always, right? There might be some in there that are not real, right? And so unfortunately, the problem with not having real followers is Instagram's algorithm is based on response, right? So let's say like you have 3 million followers and 1.5 million of them are fake or bots. The first 1.5 million, based on the ratio of engagement that they see, they're going to give you priority, or they're going to give somebody else priority to be able to be shown in the feed, because of the more engagement means more ad dollars for them, So essentially, if your audience is not responsive to a certain ratio, we don't know what that ratio is, they start deprioritizing you, right? So they don't show your content to your entire audience. So these guys that are buying, bots and all this other stuff, a lot of them are all complaining about engagement, because it's like until you get rid of those followers, you're never going to be better than half. You know what I mean? Half of your followers will never see your content because half of them are fake, right? They're just bots. The other half will see it, but then that's 50%, already. So it's not real.
If you have the opportunity to remove followers and you removed these bots or remove these spam accounts, would that then give you the opportunity to get better reach then and fix it that way?
It's possible, but how would you do that? Think about it. Like some of these guys have millions of fake followers. Like how would they remove them? How do you identify them?
And you kind of set yourself up to fail because some people in that sphere put their whole worth, their internal worth predicated on their following. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like they don't feel like they could step backwards, but they've got no engagement. That's why there's a lot of influencers that have 2-3 million followers that are not making any money.
Yeah.
Because they can't sell anything because they can't reach anybody.
That's true. Yeah, the reach is a big problem for a lot of these people, but at the same time, content is key as well. There's a lot of people like IG girls, right? Like a lot of IG girls out there with like 3-5 million followers, and the money they make. I mean, let's just say they're not on OnlyFans, right? Like non-OnlyFans girls, but they don't make brand dollars because their audience is primarily men, or something like that, So the content will determine also. And so we know a bunch of people with like 50,000, 100,000, 75,000 followers that are making a killing because their content is so, so perfect for a brand, and that drives the engagement as well. So like women with a female audience, like 50, 75, 100,000 audience influencers, we call them micro influencers, they could be earning $20,000 to $50,000 a month potentially, depending on, how great their content is. So.
And what kind of things have you seen within the social content sphere that people should be applying now, but you don't see it applied enough? Like what kind of frameworks are really getting people more reach, more things? Because I noticed one thing that I think that I personally believe is getting people a lot more reach is these kind of like cartoony posts where they say it's a personal development post and they'll do like the advertorial type cartoony thing that shows it and someone's speaking over the top. They're getting a lot more reach than just say if someone was sat there talking and there was titles going across it. So what are some other things like that?
Yeah, so from that standpoint, I'm not really up on all those trends, but I do think the captions help quite a bit, because a lot of people have sound off. That's like the easiest thing, like adding captions to these videos. I think that's key. From that standpoint, I see a lot of these joint posts, and the joint posts are doing really well for people because one person might have a stronger audience and reach, and that kind of boosts them and like really create some sort of interest for them to follow the other person, so that helps quite a bit. I've seen a lot of that. Boosting posts is still good. I feel like, to find audiences that are not currently following, I think that'd be good, and target the audiences that you want. For females that have, and this is interesting because for women that have primarily male and men as their followers, I think what's helped quite a bit for a lot of people I know is just kind of flipping the content style, becoming more, I'd feel like more inspirational to women, having relationship posts and things like that really kind of like, you might shed some male users, but I think you'll gain female audience, stuff to, like the women can appreciate and respect. I think like a little bit less risque, that helps quite a bit, I think, for them to just drive incremental new audience and target the audiences that you want.
Yeah, I love that.
And actually just target posts on specific days. I think that's really cool too. So some people have like on Fridays, they'll have a relationship kind of post, a joint post with their significant other, like on a different day, like on a Monday, they'll have, something about some sort of self-development stuff, for women, and then this is like a female thing. And then like on a Tuesday, they'll do some like workout stuff on a Wednesday to do some cooking stuff or something like that, to create some sort of a schedule of content where people kind of expect certain things and look forward to them. That's kind of cool. I've seen people do that. It kind of helped people turn around their audience as well.
Quick one for you guys. This podcast is sponsored by ContentRemover.com. As many of you are probably aware, I set up contentremoval.com in 2017 to help people remove all forms of online content, and I've looked after some of the biggest names and brands in the world doing it, and I would love to help you if you're struggling. If you're struggling to remove images, videos, search results, fake accounts, or anything online, go to contentremoval.com and we'll help you today. For someone like you, though, that's experienced a couple of big exits, that's made his money, that's set himself up on the right path by doing the Silicon Valley route, what do you think of the personal brand these days? Because everyone's on about building the personal brand,
Sure.
building their own reputation, their name. It's become kind of a buzzword, personal brand, reputation, whatever you want to call it. What's your thoughts on that? Because obviously you went the traditional route of, I'm going to learn how to be really good at marketing, and I'm going to join a startup like MySpace, and I'm going to own equity and I'm going to exit. So what's your thoughts?
So I think there's a lot of hype around personal branding, and the path is like kind of like like let's do a bunch of podcasts and let's have an ebook or let's write a book and have a conversion funnel and sell some coaching, and then we'll do a speaking tour, and that's kind of the thing that everyone's doing, right? So like from my standpoint, from a credibility perspective, I really need to understand the background of this person, right? In general, I am not going to, and there's a lot of sheep out there, but I'm not going to be a follower of someone without understanding their their background and like their credibility and like what they've actually achieved and done, for me to be able to say, hey, this is a person that I'm looking up to and potentially they're going to be a coach of mine or whatever, right? So a lot of people out there that are trying to build personal brands and kind of going in that route, I think that there is a lot of importance to understanding like, hey, your experience and what you've done in the past to be able to leverage that to kind of build the brand. I think what I've done is very traditional. I've worked for a bunch of companies, worked for a bunch of people, and then eventually I figured out, yeah, great, I could work for people, but I can now also work for myself because I've had the discipline, and being able to, to achieve some stuff. So from that standpoint, I think that it's a little different today than it was back then, because a lot of people have, these independent, home-based businesses and things like that. So you kind of find there's a lot of crowded space in that whole community, the whole coaching and mentorship and personal branding. And I feel like the whole personal branding thing kind of comes with coaching, and everyone's kind of doing this private coaching stuff. There's a lot of podcasting, there's a lot of, touring and public speaking, which is really cool. I think it's really great. But I also feel that by itself might not be, people can make the kind of money that they can be independent with, but I don't think, building a business, having a strong exit, I feel would be a really strong, like a much stronger path, I think,
Yeah, when I see people like yourself that have got a strong personal brand, or someone like Alex Hormozy,
Sure.
the reason you both have strong personal brands and the reason why people listen to you is because you've done epic shit. You've been involved in epic stuff. You've exited epic stuff. You've got a story to tell, and it's facts, because we started with this, it went to this in 18 months, we exited for this money. It's facts, right? So you deserve people to be interested in you because you've done cool shit. I think there's potentially a lot of people out there that are just starting a personal brand, and that's what they're starting. They're not starting by doing cool shit. And I think that's where it all gets twisted, right?
Sure. Yeah, I believe that. But I also feel that, from when I meet people, it's either, hey, what have you done? What have you done? Right. But like what you've done in the past is also different from what you're doing today. Because like what you're doing today, I think is more important than what you've done in the past, And I feel like, what are you up to today? And what's your mission right now? Right. Like that could be really, really substantial. And I also feel that if you're not on that route of like building a company, or you have built a company, or you're planning to build one, what have you written, right? So like I also look at it from that standpoint. It's like you're writing books, what are you doing, from that standpoint? And so you're an authority by either way of experience in building a company or by writing something, substantial that everyone loves, right? So those are, thought leadership can come from either side. And I think that, that's what I kind of look for. And I think that people can do it. They could just start off building their own brand by writing books.
Would you pursue thought leadership first, or would you pursue the money first?
Well, I'm an opportunist, so wherever I see the wins, right? So, like from my standpoint, if I see an opportunity to build a company and there's a win there, there's something I got to fast follow pretty quickly, and I can replicate it, then I'll do it. I'll do that. I work pretty well in that environment because I have a lot of experience there. But as far as thought leadership, I'm working on 2 books right now with Carson. So I'll be in that path soon as well. But my mission's not really to. I don't want to sell coaching or any of that stuff. I just want to put out a couple books that'll help people and do some speaking tours and some podcasting to really just inspire people rather than it becoming more of a, like a commercial interest for me.
But the interesting way that you've done it is you've gone, okay, I've done epic shit first, and now I can talk about it because I've done epic shit.
Sure.
Which means that you've now put yourself in the window to come on podcast, because at the end of the day, you've got a good story to tell, and you can, what you can tell, you can back up with figures, exitable figures. I think that's where it gets kind of lost in translation. You talk about the fast follow method and how you've applied. Well, you've basically formulated a framework while you're at MySpace with this fast follow because you've seen that work. How are you, like, what are the steps that people can take from this podcast today and apply that for what they should look for in their business, or what they should look for when they're investing in business?
Yeah, sure. So I think the MySpace thing was a bit, secondary. The primary one, the first one was going back into Silicon Valley in the late 90s. There was a company called NextTag. I was one of the early guys there. NextTag was a comparison shopping engine, kind of like a Price Grabber. I don't know if you remember Price Grabber a while back. You just go on Price Grabber, you look for things, and there'll be like 100 merchants, selling the thing, and you can, it's a comparison shopping engine. So you can just pick the one with the lowest price or whatever, right? And so we basically sold those slots basically to different merchants, right? And so I was one of the early guys there in business development. I saw the company out there called LendingTree, and LendingTree was doing similar things but with consumer loans. So they were basically saying that, hey, you apply for a mortgage, essentially, and then they're saying lenders will compete for your business. So you get like 4 quotes, right? Essentially from different banks on your type of mortgage. Either it's a refinance or it's a new purchase, whatever it is. So I said, hey, we're doing this already with soft goods like software and also with hard goods, with like electronics and things like that. NextTag. Why don't we do this with mortgage leads? They're doing, it's basically the same thing. It's virtual. We don't have a physical product. We're not selling anything on either any of our businesses. So let's open this up, right? We're selling leads. We're in the lead business, right? So we're going to sell leads to software guys. We're going to sell electronic guys. We're going to sell leads to mortgage guys, right? So we built that business at NextTag. We kind of created, so a fast followed LendingTree, created that whole framework, built that business, boarded the banks, and then started running traffic to consumers to save money on their mortgages. That blew up overnight, and it crushed it. I mean, it became so big that we ended up selling half of NextTag many years later for over $1 billion, right? And it was primarily the mortgage business. That was it. It went from, comparison shopping engine to basically selling mortgage leads, right? So then I took that and that concept that we created there, I took that and built it at Lower My Bills, which was the next one. So we fast followed. And then that was the biggest business Lower My Bills had, and Lower My Bills, and we ended up selling it to Experian. So essentially, we can see things that are opportunities that are near us and figure out who's doing them well, or find someone who has access to these people by adding value to their lives in a certain capacity and figuring it out, essentially just reverse engineering stuff, right? So I feel like, the fast follow method, we did this in direct response marketing for a long time. So the company after MySpace, it was an ad network, and essentially we had lots of direct response clients, affiliate marketers, etc. So affiliates are the best at fast following, right? So they'll see somebody running the same product that they're running. They'll look at the conversion funnel and look at the ads, the conversion funnel, the site that they're on, and say, hey, these guys are doing well. I can already tell because I keep seeing their ads here, So they must be doing well. So then they'll put ads, the same conversion funnel, same products on the same site. And, they'll be able to test it there. So, okay, it's performing, but how do we improve it? Let's improve it. Let's improve the ads, the landing page, the entire funnel. Affiliate marketers have been doing this for a really long time. So, that's a really great form of fast following. So when we were running those types of campaigns, we didn't want to learn, what's going to perform on our own. We didn't want to take something that we have no data on, a campaign we have no data on, ads that we have no data on, and a conversion funnel like landing pages, et cetera. We had no data on that, any of that stuff, right? So we don't want to run that. It's too expensive. Like, we don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure it out. So we would see what everyone was running, kind of copy it, and we have some sort of baseline or benchmark. We know where it's going to perform. It's close to the effective cost per acquisition that we need to hit to be able to to run that campaign. So from that standpoint, it's just kind of like a macro and a micro version of fast following. But I feel like there's always going to be opportunity to fast follow something great, and it's not, at the end of the day, nobody cares who pioneered it, who created it. It's just like, you can't patent anything. You're writing a formula essentially. When you patent something, you're showing somebody a recipe of how to do it, a little differently, and then it doesn't affect the patent. So you can't protect any of this stuff. So just figure out what is winning, who's around you that's doing really well. Will they teach you? And you can build a business pretty fast.
Or even who's doing it well and what can I learn from looking at them. But essentially what you've said there in layman's terms is become a really curious observer of what's working in markets that you're genuinely curious about. Because like curiosity has really led your career.
Yeah.
Like if we're going to break it down from what I can see, you've just been curiously led into different niches and thought, okay, what frameworks have I seen work in niches that I'm no longer in? What can I apply from those, and what am I seeing that's working in that space? And I'll put them together, and that's my fast follow protocol for that niche, and I'll send it off that way. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And I think that's kind of I think where people potentially then could be going wrong is they're starting something that they believe. And belief is a problem, isn't it? Because they've already conned themselves into believing that their idea is good.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, I don't believe anything. I'm just going to look at the data, and I will just operate completely off data. So you've took the emotion out of it.
100%. Yeah, and I don't have any. There's no ego or emotion, right? It's not a race to good ideas. It's a race to revenue, right? That's the end of the day, right? So the bottom line is like, I don't really care if the idea is good or not. If it works, it works. I've seen the weirdest shit make money. And so we've had clients during the ad network years. They'll buy. It's so funny. They'll buy these same flashlights that are selling on Amazon for like $5. And these guys are selling maybe like hundreds of thousands of them every month, and they were selling the same flashlights for like $30, right? The same ones, and it's like, how does that work? Well, they're running them on these conservative news sites where you have these super hardcore right-wing people that are focused on survival, like for some reason that there's going to be an apocalypse, right? They need a flashlight, and like they need like dehydrated food and weird shit like that, right? But these guys are buying that stuff, The way that they sell the copy on the landing page is like convincing you that, fuck, there's going to be an apocalypse, or there's going to be something crazy going on. Zombies are coming. So I need a flashlight, and this is part of my survival kit rather than a flashlight for $5, the same thing on Amazon. These guys are selling for $30. And you know what? They sell hundreds of thousands of them every month. And this was going on for a long time. So we'd see that all the time. It's like, it's not about being the pioneer, because you never know if you really are anyways. It's about figuring out what works, being open to it. It's like, hey, this is working today, this is working tomorrow, like whatever it is, and it's cyclical, so from that standpoint, it really is about figuring out and having those conversations with people, like what's working, what are these people doing, how are they making money, can I replicate it? Yes, you can, 100%. If it's been done already, you can replicate it. So
what were your goals when you first started getting into Silicon Valley? I mean, did you set out a framework of like, my goal is to hit this number of net worth. I want a house in this location. Like a lot of people talk about vision boards and about manifesting their reality. Is that really tangible, or is that a thing for you, or how have you done it?
No, absolutely not. So my early mentors were, like I'd read a lot of books at a really early age. I was reading Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and Brian Tracy and all those guys back then. And I learned very early that no, it's not about that. It's never about that target. It's about the journey, right? And really, essentially what you really need to focus on is adding as much value as you can to every partnership, relationship, client, friendship without expecting much in return. And eventually, once you've added so much value, you will be valuable, right? So the goal for us is always to be providing as much value as we can in whatever we do. And if we make money, we make money. It's not about, oh, we want to be, we want to be rich, or we want a car, or we want a house, or it's never about that for me. It never has been, all that stuff just came. I'm focused and passionate on what I do, and I will not do anything unless I'm passionate about it. And so I feel that for me, the challenge is like, I could take this thing from 0 to 60 in how long, right? How fast can I get this thing growing, And that's what my mission is. It's about the work. It's not about the, collateral benefits or collateral consequences, or the houses and the cars and the wealth and all that other stuff. That's collateral. That's not the primary. That stuff happens when you do a good job.
What would you say though to people on the journey of like their journey might be right now that they're working a 9-to-5 job, they're listening to you, they're inspired, they want to get out, get amongst it and start creating the kind of lifestyle that you've got and the kind of opportunities that you've created for yourself. You're saying go out and add value to the world, which I understand because I've had to do that myself. But it's like, how can people bridge the gap between like the 9-to-5 or the small business and what you're talking about? Because there's a big gap there that needs to be bridged, and I think there needs to be a little bit more than just adding value. I mean, there must be something else that they can do to speed that process up, right?
Yeah, essentially, they got to surround themselves with people that are winning, and then people that have done things or are currently doing things that are, much bigger than what they're doing currently, right? So, the environment's going to determine what you're going to do, right? Or the ideas you're going to have, what you're going to implement and execute on. If you have shitty ideas around you from people that are, not necessarily the right people to be around, you're not going to get the good ideas. Now, all my ideas have always been from people that are bigger than me. I'm always surrounded by people that are much bigger than I am, and I think that learning that from Tony Robbins at a very early age, right, really changed things for me, because I've always been the smallest guy in the room, and I always want to be, and I think that's the best. I get all the craziest ideas from these people. How did I take 2 companies public? I took 2 companies public, and it's the craziest thing. It's like, where does that come from? Like, I wasn't approached by bankers or anyone. I had to figure out how to do it. I was acquiring companies. There's an LA Times article about me like years ago that said we were on $100 million buying spree, acquiring media companies. And we were doing that. We were doing it without any cash.
How?
So how does that happen? It's just people around me, right? So I had some guys around me, a guy named Robbie Lee, really great friend of mine. He had the biggest dry cleaning roll-up in history. And it was crazy. He was going on mom and pop dry cleaning operations around the country on a private company. His company was private. He was acquiring all of them with 0 cash, acquiring them. He had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these dry cleaning operations, mom and pop. And then he acquired them all, sold a dream to everyone, sold a fantastic dream, and it worked and it materialized. That basically they're going to have the biggest dry cleaning roll-up in history. And he did it with 0 cash, and basically took the whole thing, gave them all equity in this one private vehicle, took that private vehicle public, and then everyone got equity in it, and it blew up, and everyone did well, really well. So I learned from guys like this, because if I didn't have a guy like that around me, I wouldn't have been able to acquire those companies with no cash.
Right.
So I'm really good at selling a dream, and I learned how to sell the dream from Robbie Lee, and so having the right people around you is critical. But the most important thing about this is being able to attract the right people. So it's like you could be like this guy trying to like hang out with these really smart guys, and they don't want to be around you, right? So one thing that I really learned at an early age also was that to be able to attract these people, you need to provide a lot of value to them. And for me, what value I brought was other great people. So great people like great people, and there's a shortness. We're understaffed in great people in this world, especially in LA, right? So I've been attracting really great people, and then I connect them with really good people, and we're around, nothing but fantastic people all the time. So think about Robbie Lee, that was really great. And I ended up taking 2 companies public, and it was, it was rough because I was always in the media and getting shorted and just like slapped around. It was really, really tough. But I did end up raising a lot of money. It was about $80 million in the last one. And, I learned a very specific art. There are very few people on this planet that can take a company public, and I've done it. And, to be able to leverage that experience for the next one is great. So will I do it again? I kind of have to. I have the experience, Will I do it differently? 180 degrees, very differently. But, you learn from people around you. You got to choose wisely. Your time is the only currency you have. If you're not around the people that you want to be like, then you need to rethink who you're around.
But there's a few things in that. I mean, first, what you've done with Robbie Lee is you've essentially you can bring him good connections, and then as a byproduct of you bringing good connections or always being around good people, you've been able to learn of him how to do these, public, take companies public. Essentially, you've learned that from him, and he's inspired you to do it. What were some of the things that you did wrong in taking these companies public that caused so much stress for you?
I think that the whole concept of taking a company public is, all the hype around it is like, it's really hard, no one, it's very hard to do. It's almost impossible, all of that stuff. Right. So you're kind of polluted with all of that in your mind. You're swimming around in all these ideas. The whole time you're doing it, you're anxious and you have a lot of anxiety and you're insecure. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen. This is like a crazy, weird dream, This is not going to happen, right? So the whole time you're like roadblocks, right? So think about taking company public. The whole thing, the whole way is speed bumps. Like, it's thousands of speed bumps the whole way. There's no like smooth sailing. There's no like straight like Autobahn. It doesn't work that way. So you're kind of dealing with all that stuff. So as a result of that, you want to meet other people that have done it, right? And you want to leverage their experience and learnings and stuff too, right? So basically, inexperience, almost requires you to be depending on other people. And you're just like, oh my God, these guys are so smart. Let's leverage them and let's use their learnings. So I chose the wrong people. So some of the people I was around have been, like they were predatory, right? So they're going to help you. They're going to help you go public. They're going to help you do this. They're going to help you do that. They're going to sit on your cap table without an escrow. They're going to end up selling. They end up selling immediately. Like, as soon as you go public, they end up dumping their stock and your stock goes to hell, right? So that happened to us, on both of those listings. So we ended up with, the wrong guys, the wrong investors too. Some of the wrong investors ended up, saying, oh, we're going to hold on to you guys for at least 5 years. As soon as the IPO happened, start selling, So that's, we went up like 50% the first day or something crazy. But yeah, I think so. That was being able to find the right people for something like that is critical. It can affect your whole thing. So now I know exactly, all the red flags. I know what to look for. I know like the baseline mandatory stuff, like we escrow everyone who's not, a founder. They get escrowed for 24 months. They cannot sell their shares. We don't end up with advisors that don't actually have any skin in the game, like advisors that aren't actually investing into the vehicle as well. And, all that stuff, So I have actually had to help several companies that were going public and kind of like steer them away from that kind of thing. I think Canada and Australia are two very predatory markets. Canada is really bad.
Are these both the markets that you've floated in?
Yeah. And so Canada is like very predatory. And I know a lot of guys that had fantastic companies that lost their companies because of the sharks over there, They ended up doing some really wicked stuff to them.
I've got a big audience in Australia. What talk me through your experience of starting and floating a business in Australia?
We did a lot of road shows and we spent a lot of time over there, and people were receptive, but I felt some like really strange energy towards Americans, the whole time. They blamed us for the whole MySpace demise thing, when it was actually Rupert Murdoch. So I'd go into like roadshow meetings to raise money, and then they'd bring that up. They're like, "Oh, you're the guy that destroyed MySpace," just really, really weird, like weird and strange things like that. And then we had a problem with the actual the exchange themselves too. So we had we're fully compliant. Everything was submitted, prospectus, everything. Ernst & Young was our auditor. Everything was audited, ready to go. And then we had an IPO date. Last minute, they exercised discretion and required us to audit another period. So, and that wasn't even required in, in the rules. So we had to spend 6 months to audit another period. And unfortunately, that costed us millions of dollars, in expenses and also in time. So that was a weird thing. And I felt like they were doing that, and our attorneys told us that they're doing that because we're American, So American companies, we got a better valuation in Australia. That's why we didn't end up floating in the U.S. at the time. But it was it was a real interesting experience.
Why was the value different for floating it in Australia compared to America at the time?
Well, because over here there were comps here at the time. There weren't comps over there, right? So there were no other companies like us that were floated over there. And over here there were comps. And the problem was the comps, there were really just two comps in the space, and they were at really, really poor valuations, like a tenth of their revenue, like really bad, And so, we felt like we had already gotten ready to file the S1 here, and we spent 2 years to get ready for it, and we're about to file the S1, and we saw the comps were just so bad that it was like, there's no way we can float here. It just wouldn't make sense. We have so much dilution. It'd be too bad. So we ended up, we had a CFO that did a company over there in the past, or a couple in Australia, and we ended up going with them. We took a couple meetings and we just went with them. So they raised the whole thing in one call. So it was an opportunity at the time.
And I suppose from now on, would you say doing business in America is your primary objective now, rather than trying to do business in other parts of the world, in terms of like where you set up and where you structure yourself so that you can sell and everything else?
Sure. I think we're open to other places as well. I mean, we always transact in other countries too, from digital marketing standpoint. I think that, to have a vehicle based in another country, it makes it a little bit more complex. But the next company we take public will be here. It'll be on the NASDAQ. It won't be.
Can we discuss some of the companies you're involved with currently, or?
Sure. So I have a stealth project right now that I started about a year ago, and it's a connected television company. So connected television is essentially a smart TV, like Samsung, LG, etc. And they have an app store as well. And users download apps from there and stream content from those apps. And a lot of those apps are ad supported. So we'll have a commercial, kind of like what you see on Hulu and YouTube, within the content. And those are the ads that we're selling. And we're primarily focused on that now.
So that's so you're an ad company, would you say, or?
Yeah.
Primarily drive it. Is there anything else you're involved with that's exciting you right now?
So yeah, I have several other businesses as well. We have a pretty strong credit repair agency for 18 years. It's focused on mostly like high profile people, but we're opening it up now to a lot of partnerships and solar companies and mortgage companies, etc. So it's pretty big at this moment. We also have a short-term rental business. We have about 20 properties here in LA, and that does pretty well. And passion project of mine, we had a psilocybin business. So we had a
now you're talking my language.
mushroom company for about. We have the supplement brand for 5 years now. We added mushrooms to it for about a year and a half now.
So I've had some phenomenal changes in my life because of psilocybin trips that I've done in controlled environments, and I've probably done about at this point in time I've done 3 journeys, 5 gram, 5.5 gram hero dose journeys, and it's absolutely revolutionized my life. I mean, the first one can only be described as ego death and learning, getting outside of myself to be able to see myself is the only way I can describe it to you. And I just want to understand what your experience is with mushrooms and how you found it and how you got into all that.
Sure. So essentially, I had a really bad experience with mushrooms about 20 years ago. And I've really never done much drugs. I've only had MDMA, mushrooms, and I've smoked weed a couple times, but I can't really handle the cannabis. It's not my thing. So, and MDMA, I haven't done it for over 20 years. So I had a mushroom experience about 20 years ago, and it was a really bad, it was a bad trip. It was really depressing and stuff. So I said never do it again. And then I had basically I quit alcohol about 4 years ago. I never really had much alcohol in my life, but I just felt like I just wanted to be more leaner, and more fit. So just Hormozy. I'm sorry, actually, you know what? It's It's what's his name? The Stanford guy. He's always,
Huberman.
Huberman's always talking about 1 drop of alcohol versus none is a huge contrast, right? So 3-4 years ago, I quit completely and 0 alcohol, and I feel like it's made a huge change, for me. And so around that time, one of my friends is like, "Hey, you need to replace it with microdosing." And this is a Silicon Valley guy. He's been very successful, sold a company to Facebook many years ago for 9 figures, and then he had another company that he built like over the last 3-4 years. It's worth about $3-4 billion now. And he said all of his ideas have come from psilocybin, and he does these like deep 10-gram journeys.
10 grams.
10 grams, yeah.
It's mental.
Yeah, with a shaman. So, I said, I don't like, I'm not into drugs, it's not my thing, I said, I won't do it, He said, "Okay, I know you, so I'm going to send you some stuff to read." So he sent me all the science. All right, so I started reading these studies about effects of mushrooms on your brain, right? And the phenomenal thing was like, I started looking at this stuff and I said, why am I not doing this? Like it's so good for you. It's like creates new neural pathways, neural network genesis. So neurogenesis spawns. So essentially you're creating brain cells while you're on it. Whereas everything else you're on is killing brain cells, right? Alcohol, cannabis, you name it, whatever else it is, right? So I felt like that was really interesting. And then PTSD, depression, so many other benefits, mood enhancement. So I started microdosing. I started trying it out, tried everyone's products, and it's very inconsistent. I felt like, hey, one time I feel really great, another time I feel weird and have anxiety or something strange, And so then I got to the founders of these companies, I started asking them questions and said, "Hey, why are these so inconsistent? Like, what is the issue, right?" And it's like, "Oh, well, we get deals on mushrooms, and sometimes the strains are different." So I said, "Oh, you don't have a predictable outcome every time. You're using different strains every time." I said, "Yeah." So okay, great, awesome. So I'm gonna create a recipe. I'm gonna create something that is gonna be consistent every time. So I started researching the strains, right, and started understanding the differences and how you feel differently on the strains. Now you can take a strain, albino penis envy, whether it's in Brazil or it's here or like another part of the world. The characteristics of that strain with your the reaction and your behavior, you should expect the same, right? Very similar. It's highly euphoric, right? It doesn't have the finish is non-anxious. You don't have anxiety at the end of it. It's just very, very happy, right? So there's other strains like Golden Teacher, Be Positive. There's so many others, like MZ, Titanic, etc. So I started understanding all this stuff and started creating products around it, right? So we have a gummy that is pectin. It's vegan. And it has, depending on the version, we have 2 different versions. One's like a penis envy, one's an albino penis envy. One's like 300 milligrams, and one's 450 milligrams, right? So microdose and a little more recreational dose. Then we have chocolates as well.
So it's a 0.3 and a 0.4.
0.3 and 0.4. And then chocolates, which have, maitake, chaga, turkey tail, lion's mane, cordyceps, all the adaptogens, dark, vegan, 72%. And we're using penis envy in the chocolate. So it's a very highly euphoric feeling. And when you mix psilocybin with lion's mane, you end up with a really, really intense response. It feels very different, So we have the chocolate. And then we have capsules now. We have 2 kinds of capsules. We have capsules for microdosing, truly microdosing, like a brain supplement, like 150 milligrams, which is very light. A different strain. It's called Maquila Gorilla, and then we have B positives, and we have MZTTs, and we have Golden Teachers, and a variety of different strains that you can choose. And then we have the more recreational dosage, 250 milligrams. We also have a spray that's coming out right now very soon. It's like a Banaka, so you can spray it, and within like 15 minutes or so, you feel the effects of it. It's really fast. And then we have a soda that we're working on right now, like a fit soda, basically. It has the adaptogens and also some psilocybin. So it's going to be really fun.
What do you see as like the main thing though, where most brands are going wrong in that space? Because like from what I've noticed is like when I've actually microdosed actual mushrooms themselves, it's been way better than any of the the products I've tried. And I presume you've experienced that before you started to set up your own products.
Sure.
So it's like, well, how can you make sure that, say if I took a 0.3 gummy or a 0.4 gummy, how can I make sure that the active ingredients I actually consume is 0.4 compared to if I actually took a microdose?
Sure. So, and that was part of my journey of understanding all of that. And the questions I was asking these guys was like, hey, are you like, are you, what's your process of extraction, right? How are you isolating this, you know? And so essentially most of these guys are using isolates, right? And I said, that just kills the real soul of the plant. So we use an actual ground powder, mushroom powder.
Right,
So we use actual plant.
Yeah.
And so it is actually that weight, you know? So it's very consistent that way. The soul of the plant is still there, and you feel all the euphoria too. In addition to, if you want to feel high, you can feel high too. But yeah, all the isolates I've tried, you just feel high. You don't feel the euphoria, you know, which is weird. So
well, I think the lesson and the learning, and few will understand what I'm about to say without taking mushrooms yourself. But the lesson and learning from mushrooms comes from, you know, the actual plant being involved in itself. As soon as you extract an element of the plant,
exactly.
you lose the learning, in my opinion. So it's very important for me. Like if I was going to take your product for argument's sake, that I know now it's ground mushrooms. Okay, so it's a whole mushroom stalk that's been ground into this and wrapped in something that tastes nice, so it's palatable. Because you know mushrooms on their own are, you know, it's
terrible,
pretty shit.
Right.
And that's being nice. So. Whereas I think a lot of brands are going wrong then is because they're extracting, and that's kind of taking away all this.
The soul, we say, it kills the soul, you know, of the plant, right? So all these like plants have their specific soul, and their guides to, you know, achieving certain things. And so when you do the extraction process, you're basically killing that off. So yeah, we've seen. I won't use an extraction method because the ground plant material is just so much better, you know. And we've had a very nice recipe where you don't taste it at all, you know. In our gummies and our chocolates, we have a higher potency of the gummies. That's 450 milligrams. You do taste it slightly in there, but it's just, that's the pro version. It's a black box, you know, and it's.
I used to just crush it up and cut a protein bar into 4 pieces, cut it in half.
Yeah.
Put the 0.4, 0.5, 0.3, whatever I was having on that, slap it in between 2 bits and eat it between a whatever name protein bar you want to say. Like, and that was the way that I consumed it to make it kind of enjoyable, but still get the benefits from it. But what have mushrooms taught you about yourself that you didn't previously know?
Yeah, so it's quite profound. So for me, I had this challenge. I had a memory issue for a long time. I couldn't remember a lot of stuff. I was never present. That was, you know, like, that's the reason why. That was the main thing, right? So mushrooms really taught me how to become present. Like, I had to learn how to be present again. And so I'm like probably the most present person you'll meet, because I'm here, you know, I'm here. So the learnings I got from mushrooms are permanent. You know, it taught me how to be present while I was on it, and I carried that into my normal life. I'm super present. As a result of that, I remember every word everyone says. I remember everything. And it's really scary, actually, for a lot of people too, because I'll remind them of very specific random things that they've said, and they're just like, wait, what? That's crazy. So, you know, that's a big part of it. When you're present is the only time you can actually express gratitude, because you're not in the fear of the future or regret of the past. You're actually appreciating today and right now, right? So that's a problem with a lot of society. It's just like, really, they're just kind of living between the fear of the future and the regret of the past, and just kind of floating between the two, but not actually seated in the middle, which is right now. And you cannot really truly express gratitude or appreciate it until you're actually in the moment today, right now, right? So all this stuff that we're having, this moment, this conversation we're having right now is really important, you know, and all of this stuff is for us to get to this point in our life. You know, we have to be really gracious for it. And so it really helped me understand that the work that I need to do is all internal. It's not external, right? Everything can be done here. And so, you know, the help that we get from these tools, like, and I was doing ketamine therapies, you know, I did a couple of them. My buddy, he has a company called Better You Health and their K therapy clinics. This friend Derek, he's a great guy. He did 2 administered ketamine therapies with me. They're about an hour and a half each, and they were profound. And so that tool with the psilocybin tool, they're separate. It helped me get to the meditative state, a very deep meditative state where I was able to process the work. I was able to do the work inside. And then the mushrooms also help you kind of, not only stabilize your mood and deal with depression and stress and all this other stuff, but it really helps you, kind of get to that state, and I think that's really important. A lot of people can't achieve that in the practice of meditation anyways. So
I think the faster you can get to knowing who you truly are, that is like your whole essence of being in life. If you can get there as quick as possible, it's going to be advantageous throughout your life. I mean, as I'm looking at you, I'm thinking, wow, you said you were like 40 something years
47,
old, 47 years old. How are you keeping yourself so young and vibrant at 47 years old? Because people never look at you and say you're 47.
Sure. Yeah. So I think, essentially, MySpace Tom and I have been biohacking for over 20 years now. Okay. So, we don't look like our age because we've done a lot of things. We've spent a lot of time with, just trying to improve every day and just figure stuff out. But there's a few fundamental things that I do that kind of keep me anti-aging, right? So my hormones have been managed by my doctor for about 7 years now, right? So when guys turn 40 years old, they stop producing certain things and they overproduce other things, right? Testosterone, progesterone, estradiol, and a couple others just kind of go out of whack, just naturally. So all that stuff, I'm labbed every 90 days, and I have either peptides or other stuff that kind of keep me balanced and optimized. Hormones are really, really big player in this, right? And so you lose your vigor, your drive, your energy, all that stuff if your hormones aren't right. You don't feel like doing anything. There's a lot of guys I know that are over 40 that kind of feel that way. And then physically their bodies start changing too, right? It's a big problem. Fasting was a really important thing for me. I've been, for about 3-4 years now, I've been fasting 23 hours a day. I do
23 hours a day.
I eat once a day. So, there are exceptions, obviously. I'm probably going to eat soon. I had this like weird sinus thing all day. This pressure's so crazy.
So your body will let you know if you need to.
Yeah. Like today I'm going to eat soon. But essentially it is, so it's everyone's body's different, right? So I just bought these keto strips on Amazon, and I wanted to see if I was in ketosis or there's any ketones in my urine. So I tested it like 16 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, 22 hours, nothing, and I do this for, weeks. And then I get to 23 hours and I start seeing, like ketones in the keto strip. So for everyone, it's different. For me, 23 hours works the best, because I could actually be in ketosis, at that stage. But a lot of people, 16 is good for them, or 18. You just got to test yourself and see what makes sense. But the benefit I get from it is I could be fasted. All my workouts are fasted. I'll do 3 workouts a day.
3,
like one like really heavy weightlifting, another cardio workout, and another cardio workout later on. But yeah, so 3 workouts, fully fasted, and some other things like meditate twice a day. I practice transcendental meditation, which is TM. Drink about a gallon of water a day. Like a variety of different things enable me to just kind of stay
But
maintained.
how do you achieve so much in business when you got to work? You got to go to the gym 3 times a day. You got to.
You have the gym at your home. That's an important thing.
So do you think then that this kind of level of optimization started after you'd made money? Like so because I don't want people that listen to this will be like, yeah, that's great for you, mate, but I work 9 to 5, I do this, I do that.
Yeah,
so
there's still you still, if you work 9 to 5, that's 8 hours. You got how many hours left? You got 16 hours left in the day. You're gonna sleep for 16 hours? No, you're gonna sleep for 8 hours. You got 8 hours left.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do for the 8 hours? 3 workouts. It's potentially 3 hours, right? You don't need to do 3. You could do 2, potentially, right? That's 2 hours. You still got 6 hours left. What else can you do?
Why have you optimized for 3 workouts a day? Is that every day?
Yeah, so it's in the middle. So that's 5 days a week. So the beginning would be the first, and in the morning it'd be cardio, 30 minutes of like super intense cardio, and then some bar work like dips, pull-ups, stuff like that, push-ups, just basic stuff. And then That'll be knocked out in like 45 minutes to an hour. And then the second workout, which is about 1.5 to 2 hours, which is like extreme weightlifting with a trainer, like super, super heavy stuff. And then the third workout is later on in the day before I eat, which is the same thing that I did in the morning. So it's not too crazy.
And how long have you been doing that for?
3-4 years. 3 of them for 3-4 years. But then I've been working out for like 10-12 years with a trainer.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to live in England, I was out on the road in the morning running 2 or 3 miles, and then I'd go to sparring or weights in the evening, because obviously that was for boxing and stuff, and I was working hard twice a day, and I thought I felt great. Don't get me wrong, I felt great, and I felt euphoric. I'm sure you feel the same, but I realised I had to give up a lot to do those two, because I was also working a job as a carpenter at the time. I wasn't doing any online business. Sure. So it's like, I can understand how someone listening to this might go, well, that seems ridiculous. But like you say, you can start at 2, start at 1 workout a day. Some people aren't even working once a day.
Yeah, so essentially it's like you could do 1. It's fine. No one's asking you to do 3. Just do 1, just do 1. And the other 2, if you have time, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like, how many hours a day are you working? If you're working 8 hours a day, you still got 16 hours left. You could sleep for 8 and you still got 8 hours left. What are you doing with your time? And I feel like a lot of people, they need to prioritize themselves. Now, for me, I had this kind of thing, happen to me. Like, I was really, really focused on work for a long time. And I felt like that was the most important thing. Whatever happened at work will determine my mood. It was really bad. So several years ago, I realized what was the most important thing to me, which was like my friendships, cultivating new relationships, and my existing friends, my family, my animals, my health and wellness. Actually, that's probably number 1, right? And the reason, and I had to like live like that, and actually live in that moment, because it's easier said than done. But the business and all that stuff, business comes, business goes, money comes, money goes. So why do we make that what where identity is based on? We can't make our identity, our identity is not our business or our job or what we do. It is not what identifies us. What really identifies me is, all the stuff that I just mentioned, and I think that, like really focusing on my health, like really getting all that back, made a really, really big difference. And it made me feel like I'm here permanently, rather than I'm just here during this mission of whatever this project or this business is at this time,
Have you made more money whilst you've been doing that protocol?
It's interesting you ask that, because it naturally happens. Because once you start prioritizing yourself, you're thinking clearer, you're in a better mood, you're making better decisions because you're in a better, headspace. So, and you realize that, like, is anything that all these decisions that I'm making and that I'm going to make, are they contributing to the 3 or 4 core things that are important to you? Are they going to improve that in any way? Or is your health and wellness going to get better? Is it going to be worse? Like all of that stuff, because it really has to be the most important thing to me. Like for me, my health and wellness and my mental, state is the most important thing to me, today.
Well, one of the videos I watched before, the first videos I ever watched of you, was you talking about relationships and how relationships are so important for who you want to be as a man, and when you're in the pursuit and everything like that. And I think you said along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, I'm sure you can give some more context to this, but you said, like, if you're with a woman and she's doesn't understand what you're doing and doesn't understand you kind of, or you're having to bring her up to your level, you kill yourself off from your growth. Is that kind of I'm paraphrasing?
Sure. So what I was saying, and I say this to a lot of people all the time, is like, hey, like, let's forget about gender, right? It's not about gender or role in relationship, but we have relationships, and we have friends, right? And people around us, right? And so at the end of the day, it's, you really want to be careful who's around you, right? You got to be around people that have really great ideas. Fundamentally, every person around you got to look at them and say, these are the 5, and you could write this down. Actually, it's so much easier when you do it. This person, Jim Bob, here's the 5 things that I love about Jim Bob that I want to be like. I want to adopt those 5 characteristics about Jim Bob, right? He's got all this stuff. I want to learn all this stuff from him, and I want to be just like him in that way, right? So why would we make an exception for our significant other? So we look at the significant other and we say, these are the 5 things or 10 things or whatever it is I want to be like. For example, for like my girlfriend, I want to be like her in these 5 or 7 things. I want to learn these things from her. I want to adopt these characteristics from her. She's super smart, and she's going to drive my growth, right? That's how we should feel, because that person is around you more than anyone else. And if that person isn't contributing to you, to your growth, why are you making that exception? There's no reason for you to make that exception, because what have you achieved in your life? You've achieved a lot. You've achieved so much. How does this person deserve to be around you? There is a deserve. I say deserve because are they at an equal or greater level than you at certain things? And the certain things are the things that you want to be good at. If they're not, then you don't need to make that exception, because you're at this level. You need to find somebody at this level or greater. That's just how it's got to be.
So what were the things, the non-negotiables in you finding partners?
Well, that was really important to me. So like I take the whole bias out of it. It's like, well, this girl is so hot. This girl is so great. She looks beautiful. She's incredible. But she has to be someone that I want to be like in a certain capacity. She has to be driven. She has to be motivated. She has to be crushing and winning every day. She's got to be, like, what is she doing? What are the characteristics? What are these habits? What are these things about her that I want to be like? I really want to be like this, and I want to grow into that. And if it doesn't exist, it's just like, it's just like a fling then, at that moment. It's not somebody that I need to be around for a long time.
There's a lot of narrative at the moment that you should, so from an entrepreneurial man shouldn't go out with an entrepreneurial woman, because it turns into a bit of a dick swinging competition between the two of you. And people have said that, in those kind of relationships, because the woman's entrepreneurial, she can become more masculine energy, and then it's a bit of a competition. And you should, as a man, people say the narrative is that you should have a more passive woman that wants to support your growth. But what you've just said is very opposite to that, really. It's saying, no, you want someone in your corner who's entrepreneurial, who's driven, who's doing big shit, because you want to bounce your energy off her. So you're going counterintuitive to the narrative that's being taught in the mainstream, is it?
Yeah, so I'm saying that, that the whole thing about compensation, you want somebody that compensate for your, the stuff that you don't have and whatever. It's all there, and I think that there's validity to that too. I'm not saying specifically entrepreneurial. What I'm saying is like the values or the characteristics about this person that you want to be like. So for example, say my girlfriend is, super healthy, and she eats extremely clean, and and she's in like fantastic shape, and I feel like like I need to improve in that area. I need to get better, and she's just so good at it, right? She reads every label. This is true. She reads every label. There's a new gimmick every day. Like, this is going to improve my health. This is going to be better. This is going to be whatever, right? And I just can't. That's fantastic that she's like that, because I'm not like that. I want to be like that, and a lot of people think I am like that, but she's just another like extreme level above me. That's an example of like, I want to be like her in that capacity, right? And I want to learn, and that's going to improve the core values, right? Like the core stuff that I find important, my wellness, my health, my mental, right? And so she's hiring shaman from London to come down for 7 days to do ceremonies, and it's all about mental health, right? And so that's fantastic. It's great. This is inspiring me. It's helping me grow, and she has an interest that's parallel to mine, and it's not entrepreneurial, but she's, it's fantastic. Work ethic, right? Whether you're entrepreneurial or not, work ethic. Wow, her work ethic is incredible. She attention to details, fantastic. Mine isn't as great, like whatever, So there's a lot of different things that, people are better than you at a lot of different things potentially, and if they are better at things that you want to be good at, that's great, And so I feel that those are the kind of ideas that I'm surrounded by with my girlfriend. You know, like it's always like, let's get better with health, wellness, spirituality. Those are really important to me. That's the stuff. Internal stuff, not external, right? I don't need external. I don't need anything
You
external.
don't want a woman that's interested in where her primary focus is all the fillers and all the bullshit and all the
Right.
trying to take selfies.
She actually removed her breast implants,
Yeah.
you know?
I've seen a lot of women do that because of the health benefits
Sure.
of removing them.
She removed them.
Because apparently there's stuff within them that leaks into your system that changes your mood and how you perceive yourself as a woman.
In addition to that, it's a different person. It's like, hey, this is not my identity.
Yeah, I didn't even register that before because as soon as you change, I say this to people with a lot of tattoos. I don't say it to them with a lot of tattoos, but I say it about people with a lot of tattoos. When you have a lot of tattoos on your external body, it just shows you internal trauma that you've not dealt with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a classic example of where people are getting it wrong. A lot of my friends have reached out to me in the past, Ted, and talking about hair transplants for themselves, or they want to get these hair tattoos. And I say, how about you fix your own internal identity that you have with you losing your hair? And I guarantee you, once you accept yourself from that point and accept who you actually are, you will not want to get these things done because it's only because of that internal conversation that any of these things happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what would your advice be as a man that's had a lot of internal conversations and faced a lot of his internal demons so that he didn't put it out in his exterior world? What would your advice be to other men and probably some women facing that exact narrative?
You know, I feel that, again, it comes back to the work inside, you know, like the answers are all within, you know, it's nothing that's external. So I feel that, you know, my advice to a lot of people that are struggling with stuff, you know, they're just confused is, you know, like a few things are like learn how to meditate, you know, it's just like basic. Just when I say learn how to meditate, I mean like have someone who's qualified, who has a track record and a resume, have them teach you how to meditate. You know, go to a TM center. They have qualified people there. They'll teach you how to meditate. And you'll actually finally be able to meditate in contrast to what these apps call meditation, because it's very different, you know. Meditation is really important. Look into some psychedelic therapies and stuff like that. I think it's really critical. And it's profound. And, you know, like the ketamine therapy that I did, I never felt impaired or high, any of that at any point. You know, I was gone for an hour and a half each time. I came back, remembered everything, had a to-do list at the end of it. Fantastic stuff. All the stuff that's in my subconscious, I'm starting to see the blocks and stuff and, you know, be able to deal with them. And it makes a huge difference. And by the way, that's the kind of exploration I want to do, is like all this internal exploration as opposed to like, you know, this external shit, like let's buy a bigger house, let's buy a bigger car, let's, you know, like all this stuff, like, you know, I need to have celebrity friends, or I need to wear jewelry that's like, by the way, I wear beads.
Yeah.
You know?
I one thing I noticed about you when you walked in today and we met in person is like, you know, you're not signaling with a watch. You know, yeah, you got a nice pair of trainers on, but you're similar to me. Like, I'll just wear a black t-shirt and a black pair of Zara jeans and a pair of white Nikes. I mean, there's no we're not trying to impress the world. We're just trying to express ourselves.
Right. And so I have a pretty big thesis around this. And so like it was different for me several years ago. I had, you know, like I'm a fashion guy. I love fashion, you know, and so I've always, like, everything I wear is from Japan, you know, like everything, my shoes, everything's from Japan. You know?
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like these are Miharas, and, you know, like it's crazy. This is Eitan, you know, and so I love Japan. Japan's fashion is, you know, it's like next to none. They're always way, way ahead, you know. So I've been into fashion forever, you know, since I was a kid, you know, like 10, 12 years old. So, but, you know, I think that for me, or, you know, the accessories and jewelries was always kind of part of the fashion. So I had a lot of like really, you know, like insanely expensive like jewelry, like diamonds and all kinds of stuff, you know, like I'd always wear, it was part of my outfit, you know, like whatever. It was not really about, for me, it wasn't about like, oh, it's, you know, expensive and, you know, like it's unique because it's out of reach for other people, whatever. It wasn't about that. It was kind of like, oh, it's style, you know? So, but I didn't realize what it was doing. It was intimidating people. It was causing me to be unapproachable. and it did not mesh with my personality, right? And so I'm all about internal work and spirituality, and like find yourself within, but this didn't fit, right? So I made a pretty big switch. So I went to Bali, and I found this brand here. It's called Shiva Loka, and it's basically a Hindu brand, and these beads are they're called Rudraksha, and it's a dried berry, and it's interesting because that different berries have different vertical stripes on them, and they mean different things, and so they have like significance to that, and then they represent certain Hindu deities and things like that. So I'm from India, right? My background is Indian. I was born in India. I grew up Hindu. My parents are practicing, and I never really practiced until after maybe I was like 7, 8 years old. And so I've always had this like embedded spirituality built into me, And so like I found this brand in Bali, and I started wearing it. And then, I reached out to the brand and I said, hey, I love your stuff. I want to get more stuff. So I ordered a bunch of their stuff. And it's really interesting for me because the stuff means a lot. This is actually made from my birth chart. It's got like, lotus seeds and tiger's eyes and all kinds of really cool stuff, and for me, this stuff means so much to me, it has significant meaning, and these are meditation beads. They absorb energy, and they're blessed by Hindu monks, it's really cool, whereas like the diamonds and all this other shit, like I was wearing watches and stuff, and it's just kind of like, it was attracting the wrong attention. It was attracting the wrong people, who was interested in it, women that were, that I did not want to attract, guys that were, like sizing up each other and, competing with each other. I don't want those kind of people around me, egotistical, arrogant people. I don't want that. So, it just became this thing, like for me, like it wasn't consistent with my core values. So, I was done with it. And so like, I just like interesting stuff. Like this is a deity, Shiva. This is, a god that was in my, this is a bracelet I'm wearing, god that was adopted by my family, for several generations. So this stuff is really cool, like I feel like, and the idea of it is, is pretty straightforward, and people ask me about it and they're really interested, like, what are you wearing? It's kind of cool. So
you created a standout appearance because you're dressed differently to most people. What you're wearing aligns with your energy because of what you're trying to portray.
Yeah.
And what you've cut out is any unnecessary attention from wearing anything that doesn't represent who you are anyway.
That's true.
And it's like you've essentially gone, well, okay, I like an AP, I like a Rolex, I can buy all that stuff, which is what you've done in the past potentially. But then you're like, well, but the people I'm talking to by having the AP are boring as batshit, so I don't want the AP anyway because I've made my money. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I have a lot of friends that have all that stuff, and they're just like, okay, so I'm a car guy. I have crazy cars,
Got
There's
Bugatti Veyron.
Yeah, I got Bugatti Veyron. I got all kinds of other really interesting things, and like they're really interesting cars. Like there's 45 of them in the country, and there was only a couple hundred made worldwide. And I've had other really cool stuff, like this guy from Japan flies in to build Porsches, RWB, and I was the largest builder of those in the U.S. And and that is really interesting stuff. And that's just being a geeky car guy, like I like interesting cars, and so I have friends that are watch guys. They're just like that. They're just like really unique, interesting watches. They're like nerds, like watch nerds, So that's different. I understand those guys, and then there's no hate or anything like that related to that. But then there's those guys that are just buying these watches just to be, just look, like they have money or popular or whatever. And, from 10,000 feet, I would look like that, and I just don't want to feel. The bottom line is I don't want to intimidate anyone. I don't want to be unapproachable, like, oh, this guy's got this watch. He's like, I can't really talk to him. I don't want to be. I just want to be a basic floor level dude, that anyone can approach and talk to, because I want to be able to talk to anyone myself.
Because that's where you've learned all the best lessons in your life to be able to apply to business to make X amount of millions anyway. So I know that's not the reason you're doing it, but all the lessons and all the insights come from the floor level for you.
Yeah.
So why would you want to disconnect yourself from where you learn all your most valuable lessons, right?
Absolutely. Being coachable is probably the most important thing. And to be coachable, you got to be humble, right? It's a big part of it. So that's some of the best qualities in people that you'll find. Some of the most successful and smartest people are the most coachable people as well.
Yeah. And when you look at people, especially involved in tech, you look at a Bill Gates, you look at a Zuckerberg, you look at a Elon Musk, they just dress normal. Like, you know, you wouldn't, if you not that they would queue up for McDonald's or queue up for any fast food restaurants, but if they were all stood in a line with normal people, they would just look normal, wouldn't they? Just a little bit more techie than perhaps the average person. But essentially what I'm saying is they're not wearing these outlandish brands. You don't see Elon Musk wearing Off-White. You know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't care. He wants to just build the best cars and the best rockets that he can build, because that's all he's interested in. He's not interested in what jeans he's got on. He lives in a tiny house by his factory because he just loves that and doesn't need a big house. So it's like you gotta see how these people are moving, and you're moving in a similar way. And there's a thread there, isn't it? You just be happy with the smallest amount of stuff.
Yeah, you know, it's like I like architecture and I design all my houses and, you know, all that stuff. It's really interesting. You know, that stuff's kind of like a hobby for me. I'm not artistic, but I have some creative outlets. So that stuff's really cool. But I feel like, you know, the most fulfillment you're going to get is the search within, you know? Yeah. And so whatever can get you in that meditative state using the different tools, you know, whether it's, you know, medically, you know, induced and, you know, or enhanced, or you could just do it yourself. That's where you have the best, you know, the most, you know, I would say the best rest for your brain, and also the best, you know, discoveries, you know, and I think it's all, the most fulfillment's going to come within that. And also for me, the inspiration, being able to inspire people to do better, helping people get to the next level, you know, achieve whatever they want to achieve. And, you know, I think all of that is much more fulfillment than, you know, like the selfish stuff, like, oh, you know, like I did really well, I deserve this next thing, whatever it is, you know, that never gets me fulfillment, you know, it's just like whatever, you know, it's like stress actually, you know, so.
Yeah, and you can rather than creating stress in your life, you can choose to create a different narrative by actually going back to truly who you are, rather than trying to be something that you're not, essentially, is what you're saying. And you've found it out from an early age, lent into your passions, built money and wealth out of it, but not gone obnoxiously down it so far that you've kind of sent yourself off down this dick swinging path, you know, where most people do. Ted, mate, it's been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate your time on the podcast. But one thing I like to ask people before they leave this podcast is, if there was one piece of golden wisdom, one pearl that you could leave for every member of this audience that just moves them forward in 1% from today, and it's the only thing you can leave if you've got to check out the planet, what would it be to you?
Yeah, I think, you know, I like this a lot because everyone can do it. It's a simple exercise, and I think that you just grab a notepad and a pen, and really just write down the people that are around you. You know, just take a look at everyone that's around you and just kind of catalog them systematically. Like, who are these people? Like, who are you spending your time with, right? And then start listing for each one of them. You can create a spreadsheet if you want, but yeah, start listing the qualities that you admire about them, you know, and the stuff that you want to be like, right? And so this will kind of give you an idea of how to plan your interaction with these people also. And also it'll, you know, hopefully it'll give you an idea of who you need to get rid of from around you. And that way you can, you know, kind of gauge, leverage your time a little bit better, and, you know, just be around people that'll help you get to the next stage of your life, whatever that path is, right? We're not talking about accomplishment necessarily. We're talking about, you know, fulfillment, you know. So where are you going to be next, you know, and whoever you're around is going to determine that. Who are your Robbie Lees?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And like you say, and the one key thing that sticks out through this podcast for me is the fact of, like, you know, who have you got to be to add value to other people to be able to clip the ticket yourself down the track.
Yeah.
But it's never about, you'll just know you'll get that clip anyway. You don't have to preemptively try and take the clip or try and engineer it. You just go out and serve the world, and the world will serve you, essentially, what you said.
And you can't achieve, you know, the success of being able to attract great people until you've cut everyone that isn't great around you. You got to cut all the non-contributors, all the stragglers, all the ones that are, you know, the takers. You got to cut them all out of your life, every one of them. You can't have any undertones of that energy around you, because you will not attract good people. They have to be gone.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think you block yourself energetically, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. And guys, do me a solid favor. Subscribe on all the platforms. Put this in other people's ears in your network. That would help grow this show massively. I appreciate every single one of you listening. That's Ted. He's smashed it on all levels. I'll drop his details in here so you can go follow him on Instagram and see all the good stuff he's doing. Much love. Appreciate every single one of you. Peace out.
Thank you.
Guys, do me a solid favor. Drop a comment below this video and let us know who you want on the podcast next.